Welcome to another episode of the Tower 26B Racer Podcast. I'm Jim Mitzi here with Coach Gerry Rodriguez. Coach, how you doing, bud?
I'm good. How you doing? That's a good intro this time.
That's what I do.
You've got energy.
You know what? We're covering so much on these episodes that I need to get through it. There's no wasting time. There's no. But let me tell you something. People are listening, Jer. Because whether they agree with what we're saying or they disagree with what we're saying, we're getting a lot of feedback. We're getting a lot of noise based on what Batman and Robin are talking about. So I guess that's a good thing, right?
Who's Robin?
That's
who's
true.
Batman?
Let's ask your wife.
How about Batman and Batman?
Batman and Batman. Let's let your wife decide which one's Batman, which one's Robin. But yeah, we got a lot of noise off the last couple episodes, and like I said, for the good, for the bad, you know, trying to gain the 1%, and then our Kona Qualification thoughts have stirred a lot of conversation, if you can say,
sure
and
as expected.
As expected, changing of career paths, if you will, I should say.
Yep.
But yeah, you know what? That's why we're here. We're going to give our take, and we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to say what the cool thing is or what maybe not everyone agrees with, but what we believe in. So.
Yeah, and also that last episode we went over some absolutely astounding results in sport. In swimming with Katie Ledecky and Gretchen Walsh, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about in triathlon with the new bike course record and the Ironman course record. I mean, there's been some outstanding performances in the last 60 days in racing, and it's the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's even more outstanding performances coming because have you heard of this enhanced games that they're promoting right now? The enhanced games. I can tell that you're already training for it. You're already on the juice. You're wearing that, that's an extra large.
I pulled out the double X this
that's
morning.
An extra large shirt that you're wearing right now. You're busting out a thing. But do you know what? Have you looked in this enhanced game? You know what it is?
Yes, I wouldn't say I'm fully, aware of all the details, but I have read up on it and looked at the business background behind it and who's funding it and so on. And then I guess it gets started officially next year, right?
What are the enhanced games? Can you tell these guys if they haven't heard of it?
At the end of the day, in sort of a quick summary, it's, there you go.
Hence. It's getting hot in here, but hey, you know what? I've been training it too. New sponsor of the show, Enhanced Games.
Well, these are the enhanced games, the ability to compete in certain athletic events. I believe they're starting with swimming, track and field, and weightlifting. Those are the first three sports.
Yeah.
That you are allowed to use enhancements that are prohibited under WADA and the U.S. Olympic Committee, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can use some form of anabolic steroids and other items that are not allowed.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on the enhanced games? Do you think this is something that should be taking place, or do you think it's a little outside of sport?
Oh, it's a big question. Why don't we start with what do you think? And I'll give.
I think it's outside of sport. I don't like the taste it leaves in my thought process because you see these athletes. We already have some world records broken from enhanced athletes. So other athletes who are clean will say, "Hey, that's possible. Maybe I'm going to try this. I'm going to try and get away with it while performing on the clean side of sport because they're seeing what's possible." And I think it's just going to promote the use of illegal substance abuse when you come to clean sport. Not that it's not already happening, but it might be a little more prevalent when athletes see the type of results that these athletes are attaining at the enhanced games.
Agreed. There's a reason why these substances are banned, right? Because they will offer an advantage. They do offer an advantage. And so what you'll see would be, to your point, either athletes that are in the sunset years of their career, or at the end of the day, money dictates decisions by some people, not all, but whether it's the Olympic Games, NCAAs, and so on, one may think that these events are done for the benefit of athletes. Athletes are one benefit, the schools benefit, but the entities that put these on do make a significant amount of money from it.
Yep.
Right? Athletes, and all of us, you're an athlete, I was an athlete, we coach lots of athletes. At the end of the day, at the professional level, athletes are entertainment.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
Athletes are entertainment, and people pay to see entertainment. Whether you buy tickets when you go to the Olympic Games, you buy airfares, you stay in hotel rooms, and so on. So, and they're paid very handsomely in professional sports, right?
Oh, yeah.
So now I think what will happen with the enhanced games is you will see some athletes leaving the amateur levels and going to the professional level, and professional from the perspective of professional enhanced level. So I think you might see a reduction of quality athletes at the amateur level. And it's not amateur because they are professional athletes, but at the athletes that are not taking steroids, you'll see a reduction of those on athletes moving into this enhanced games because there'll be a high amount of visibility to it. I think I'm not sure this is a good thing. And there's good money behind this. I mean, I looked at the funds that have put money into this, and these are big names. Peter Thiel, I mean, there are some significant backings behind this. So there was even one event already that had a men's 50 freestyle where the world record was, the gentleman from Australia swam faster than the world record already in swimming. And was paid supposedly quite handsomely, $1 million from what I understand. I'd be interested in talking to somebody from the enhanced games to have a better understanding of their thinking on this. I can't imagine this is being received well in the unenhanced world.
Yeah, and another path you have to look down at is these athletes come out and they say, okay, I'm going to go the enhanced route. I'm going to go get paid big money. And then they come out of that and they say, you know what, I don't want to do the enhanced route anymore. I want to go back to being a clean athlete.
That's a good point.
And
how long?
Here's the thing. I think that if you're convicted of doping or if you've doped in the past like these athletes, you can never compete again with clean athletes. And this might be controversial. Oh, you have to let everybody compete if they've served their sentence. That's not the way the body works, right? The body works to the stress. The body adapts to the stress it's placed under. When you're using illegal substances, when you're using steroids, you're adapting to greater stress than the normal human can adapt to at one period of time. So you can overload because you're just recovering so quick. Your body's responding so quickly when you have the synthetic drugs coming into your system. You're adapting to all that stress. So no matter how long you go off, maybe you go off for 5 years, you've still adapted to greater stress than someone who's not doing anything illegal.
I understand the thinking. I like it. I just don't know the science enough behind it to know how long it takes for hormonal levels to return and how much what one has appreciated would get back to their pre-appreciation levels. So I think it's a discussion worthy of having. You're saying once you go enhanced, you should never go back. That's like basically saying
doping.
No doping. If you get busted, you're done for life. It's a life ban.
Your skeletal structure changes, your muscle mass changes, your ability to absorb the load changes under that synthetic drug. And that doesn't change. Like my muscle mass, unless I get where you're at in your high 70s, low 80s, you're getting osteoporosis. But oh, I'm kidding. You're not. Come on. Going to osteoporosis, that's when it starts to break down. But you've adapted to so much load because you've been able to add so much load to the system because of those drugs. I don't believe that there's ever any coming back from that.
If we go back to the 1970s and 1980s, Jim, when we look at the and I presume products are much more enhanced and of better quality now. But the point is, there are many athletes, many of the Eastern European athletes that greatly suffered from the perspective of either unable to have children with problems, right? And these were on the East German system, right? So I'm concerned about the long-term effects of this, okay? And athletes that are teenagers or young, 20s, 30s, I mean, it's easy to see the glory and see some dollars and not think of maybe the types of effects that may happen. So I'm concerned. I'm willing to listen and be interested. I'm curious.
Look at professional wrestlers. Professional wrestlers, those guys keel over late 30s, early 40s all the time, and you know how yoked up they are on it.
Well, I got 2 words for you. You might remember. Lyle Alzado.
Oh, yeah, Lyle Alzado. That's right. Raiders defensive end. Is that what he was? Yep.
So but you just dove right into it. I mean, we didn't even do a good introduction. You just went right into the big topic.
No, well, we got in, I never know where the show's going to go. We might make a right turn, might get a left turn. It came up, and I said, let's get into enhanced games. We're right here. But that being said...
It's about money.
It's about money.
It's about money.
It's about money.
It's well-funded. It's at the end of the day, look at the eyeballs at the Olympic Games, look at the eyeballs at the NCAA tournament, look at the eyeballs at looking at all these major, what is it, the football,
Super Bowl,
baseball. I mean, you have so many eyeballs. Now we can take performances to another level. And humans, if you go back in history, we have a thing for sort of pushing the limits of everything, right?
Yeah.
So.
And you could take performance to another level being clean. You can get your recovery, you can sleep, you can get more out of every workout, you can take the right nutrition, right? Precision hydration, you take that nutrition. It's going to help that you get more out of each performance, you can get more recovery. So if you do things right, you can adapt to greater stress day over day over day. But with that synthetic addition, it's just, you can't compete with it. There's no competing a clean athlete with an athlete who's doping.
And I see so many problems occurring. We can think of them right here. You know, athletes that wouldn't tell their coaches or tell their families, give this a try, enter a clean event, and see the increase in performance. Yeah. Don't get tested, and then say, well, let me just stay here until I get busted.
Oh, the ego's a strong thing, right? Man. The ego is a strong thing.
Stay until I get busted, and then, okay, I'm busted now. Fine, I'm out of the sport. Let me go into the enhanced side.
Yeah.
Which. I don't know. There's a lot of chatter that needs to happen.
That's a good point. There's no downside. You know, you get busted in the clean side, you go to the enhanced side.
There is no downside. There's no risk.
Not more money.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, but you're full of good points, man. I like this.
Every so often, the pencil gets sharp.
133 episodes in, you've been coming up with some good ones along the way. But what do we talk about technique-wise, training-wise on the last episode? Do you remember?
Well, we missed a few items because we were short on time. Is there something specific that you...
No, but we're just transitioning from our last phase of training into our open water skill building phase. So we just kind of spoke about how that transition was going to happen. But now we're into our open water skill building phase. So we're gonna hit on that throughout this episode as what that entails and how we implement that. But I think the biggest thing is, when we get into this phase of training, is attention to detail.
Correct.
You have to pay attention to detail, every little specific detail. And we actually had Coach Chris O'Driscoll's wife on our 2 p.m. call.
Amazing, huh?
On Tuesday. Allie Gold is Coach Chris O'Driscoll's wife, and she was a veterinarian 6 years ago, right? She was in the veterinarian industry 6 years ago. Fast forward 6 years, she won the championship to become a professional bodybuilder. Right, so we had these showed these videos on the 2 p.m. call of her up there posing off, and we had her on. We talked to her, and she was talking about the biggest thing that she learned over the 6 years of building herself into a bodybuilder is detail, attention to detail, from what she eats to what she lifts every day.
6 years or 6 months?
Did I say 6 years?
Yeah, 6 months. She started 6 months ago.
6 months. I'm sorry, 6 months ago, and. Attention to detail. When she wakes up, when she goes to bed, what she eats all day, what specific body parts she focuses on, how she can even out the right side versus the left side. And she did so well in 6 months of training. She won this big championship over the weekend, and it qualified her to become a professional bodybuilder. So no matter what sport we're in, it's that attention to detail is key. And I think when you go over this shortly in this open water skill building phase, we got to pay every attention to detail, because when you're out there racing, if you haven't paid attention to detail as to these specific demands of this phase of training, you're not going to be able to just pull them out like pop, 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 like a gunslinger.
Very few can.
You're going to be slow on it. You're going to be shot in the chest, right? You pull it out quicker. That's when you get the guy, and you have all the glory. So we want to pay attention to detail, have the tools in your toolbox. So do we want to get into this right away?
Sure, why not?
So this open water skill building phase started this week. You can go to coaching.tower26.com. You can partake in all the workouts that we do here in, we have so many cities we're working in now. El Segundo, Santa Monica, the Valley, Santa Barbara. We can say Pacific Palisades, even though it's burned down by fire right now, but we'll be back there eventually. So you can do all those same workouts. Go to coaching.tower26.com. You have the audio version. You have all the video files. You have Coach Gerry telling you about what every single workout entails through his buttery tones. And it's a lot of fun. So what are these athletes going to see in the open water skill building phase, bud?
Well, as you know, we have our 5 phases, right, Jim? And I think this is the most important phase of our 5 phases. Now, a coach shouldn't, that's like saying, I have 5 children and I have a favorite, right?
Yeah.
It's the phase that if somebody only joined our program for 6 weeks, or they came to us and said, Gerry, Jim, I only got 6 weeks to join you guys. When should I do it? Which phase should I join? This is the phase. Mm-hmm. Because it's the phase that encompasses everything.
Yeah.
The technical element, conditioning, power, Coach Jack likes to call it what is it?
Capacity.
Capacity building.
Yep.
And then we get into the specificity of the specific demands for open water, what skills are needed, learning and acquiring those skills, then practicing those skills, and then the specificity of workouts. Workout complexions need to change
Yep.
in this phase. We just can't train like pool swimmers because the environment that we're racing in is open water and it's dynamic.
Yep. And those skills allow you to take, say you're swimming 120 per 100 pace. You want to go to the open water and you want to swim that 120 per pace in the open water. But if you haven't practiced these skills, then that's taking away from the focus. That you're thinking about sighting. You're thinking about getting out in the transition. You're thinking about close quarter swimming. You're thinking about drafting. It's not just coming to you naturally, and that's keeping the pace away from what you're truly capable of, because you're thinking of all these things. If we pay attention to detail, we work on these skills in the pool, then you can just pull it out, like I said, just at the drop of a hat, you pull out what you need to pull out while you stay on top of that pace.
And to your point, the great majority, and I would put this in the high 90 percentile of athletes, swim a lot slower, not just a little slower, a lot slower in open water.
Yeah.
Now, there are a few obvious reasons, one being there's no wall to push off at in a pool where you get a little extra bump, right? So elite swimmers who have very, very good wall push-offs, they lose a little bit there. But elite swimmers, even the best of the best, lose a lot still once they transition to open water. And then those with less ability suffer further. Example, if you put a wetsuit on a high-quality swimmer, he or she will have an improvement. If you put a wetsuit on someone with, you like to use the word adult onset swimmers who learned to swim or didn't do any sort of swimming as kids, right? Their benefit, their percentage benefit, the delta of their gain is much more significant than than an elite swimmer, AKA Lionel Sanders or Sam Long, who the moment you put them in non-wetsuit swims, they're just hosed. I mean, they are down 4, 5, 6 minutes maybe on a 70.3, right? As we've seen in their performances. So that acquiring good technique, there's a certain amount of power and strength, much more that's needed in open water. And here's some examples of fatigue and why strength and power is needed. Let's take a guy like you, Jim, that you are an adult onset swimmer. You were a professional hockey player. Yeah, you got these guns now. I call it the luggage that you have to carry around. But you had more luggage, right? When you first came into the sport. You were 20, 30 pounds heavier, big dude. You've lost. You've left a couple pieces of luggage, at the airport, but you still have a whole lot. And a guy like you probably swim at 20 strokes per length, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
So you swim at 20 strokes per length and then a 25-yard pool, and then you turn around and you swim another 20 strokes, and then you turn around. Every time you turn, you have about a 4-second break. From the time you took your last power phase and you glide into the wall, whether you do a tumble turn, some people call it, or a flip turn, or you do a hand touch turn and you push off, by the time you do that turn and you push off and you start your next first stroke, it's anywhere from 3.8 to about 5 seconds. So let's just round it down to 4 seconds, make it. So every 20 strokes, you get a 4-second break, right?
Yep.
And if you want to do it in time, elite swimmers that are swimming very fast, a minute per 100, every 15 seconds, or non-elite swimmers, every 30 seconds-ish, 15 to 30 seconds, you get a break of 4 seconds.
Yep.
In other words, you're not doing anything with your arms. You're gliding into the wall, you're turning, and then you're pushing off. So you get this break. Now you just go into open water, there are no walls.
No break.
There's no break. So now you have continuous perpetual motion without the 4-second break. So just the transition alone into open water requires a higher demand of specific muscular endurance, continuity, right? And then because of the dynamic nature of open water, where you can have a ton of turbulence, right? The moment you have any sort of turbulence, more power is required. And also what happens to all of us, doesn't matter elite, and it happens at a greater amount for non-elite, the moment you get into higher turbulence and higher demand, the softness of the body just gets even softer again. We lose structural integrity. So all of these things happen as we go into open water. That's why performance is. And then you layer on top of that the inability to sight, with elegance, right? It's clunky. You look at most athletes' sighting, it's clunky sighting.
Yep.
Their performance is impacted negatively because they haven't learned how to sight correctly, fluidly.
Right.
So all of these pieces need to be put together as part of your training plan, which is this phase that we're in right now, together with the specificity of training, such as the demands of race takeout speed, the demands of being able to make surges and backing off, the demands of tactical moves that you were talking about, the demands of how to turn buoys effectively, right? The demands of when you conclude the swim and you have to transition and you go from horizontal to vertical and then you have to run. I mean, most athletes go anaerobic and then they have horrible transitions. At the ITU level or the world championship level, Olympic level athletes, that's the T1 transition is one of the most important transitions, or it is the most important transition.
Wow.
It's more important than T2.
Got to get out that bike group.
You got to get onto the bike quickly, otherwise you don't get into the correct group. Okay, so if you don't, either don't have a good swim, or B, don't have a terrific transition, your bike, the group that you end up in, can be impacted. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole lot that occurs from the time before you get onto your seat on your bike, backing up to the start line.
Yeah.
And it's how and what do we do to prepare for this so we have an optimal outcome?
Well, a lot of these athletes just say, just get me to the bike, just get me to the bike. And they don't realize you don't have to be the fastest swimmer, but if you can pay attention to this detail that you're talking about and execute a smart swim, doesn't have to be the fastest swim, but a smart swim where we're using all these tools that you're ingraining into the open water skill building phase, you get out feeling great. You've actually have raced the swim and you get on the bike minutes ahead of where you thought you were going to be on the bike. And actually it makes it a lot more fun because you're not dreading the swim and you feel like you're racing it. You feel like you're on the edge and you're getting after it.
It's a total mindset shift, right?
Yeah,
The
totally.
ability to go in and feel confident. So have your confidence be at a higher level. So you're going to just feel better about your day to start off. Mm-hmm. Perform really well. And the fact is, if you train properly, you get to your bike and you're fresh. You're not impacted.
Yeah.
Right? You should be unimpacted by the swim.
Totally.
In other words, the mindset of I just need to get to my bike is a great mindset if you're really prepared in the swim, because you get into your bike totally fresh.
Oh, you feel like you didn't even swim.
Yeah.
That's right. So you're talking about the muscular strength, the muscular endurance. How do you work that into this phase of training?
So it means more stretch cords, right?
Right.
And if you haven't been doing them, start doing them.
Right.
Because you just need, if you've swam in a pool, you got a prop. Oh, good.
Here you go. Stretch cords.
If you've swam in a pool without lane lines, you know how choppy it is, right? Lane lines cut down chop in a pool significantly.
Yeah.
Especially if you swim in a pool that's shallow and even doesn't have a gutter system, it's super, super bumpy. So the demands, right, the demands for muscular strength and power are significantly higher in choppy water. So doing something like what you were just showing, those stretch cords.
Yeah, you do this prior to the workout.
Yep.
So you do, how often do you do them?
You do this as often as you can, 3 days a week minimum. And 3 days a week, you can do a little demo. Oh, there you are. Let me move out of your way here.
Let's
move the other way.
Move the other way. So you do this 3 days a week. How many repetitions?
I would, for somebody starting off, it's pretty simple. 3 sets of 30 to start. 3 sets of 30. And just mimic the swim stroke, just like Jim's doing. Do the setup of the stroke right there at the beginning. Why don't you pause at the setup? There's the setup. Pause, fingertips down, straight line from fingertip to elbow. And then we just go straight backward, fingertips pointing down with an accelerated move, right? And then you recover underneath. And you could do these as single arms or double arms like how you're doing them. So 3 sets of 30 to start and then build up by 10 reps every week. You get to 3 sets of 100, and that's your minimum. That's your minimum, 3 times a week. And then you keep doing this all the way on to race day, Jim, as you know. And you would trim back, obviously, on event week. And then on event day, this would be part of your warm-up, 3 sets of 30. But 3 sets of 30 takes literally 2 minutes.
Until you really feel the effect of that strength and that muscular durability that you have, maybe you might not believe in it, but I'm telling you, it makes the biggest difference. If you stay diligent to those stretch cords, when you get out there in the open water and you don't have to slow down because your muscles start to fatigue and you're not taking that 4-second break every turn because you just keep churning the arms over and over and over, it's a huge difference and makes up such, because it's not like you're starting and stopping, starting and stopping, starting and stopping. You just have this consistent feel, this consistent stroke rate the whole way across.
I made a prediction, and you may recall this, last year, going into the Olympics, I believe you can go back and check on our podcast, I talked about the athletes who are going to perform better in the 10K swim, male and female, or in the triathlon, in the swim segment, are the athletes who are going to have more power and understood how to deal with the negative impact of the currents. Because it was in the Seine, right?
Yep.
Positive currents, that's easy. Everyone's going to swim fast. In fact, the positive currents have no benefit to fast swimmers. In fact, the slower swimmers do much better in a positive current. The negative current, so when they're coming back up against the currents, that's where you see your athletes with more power and better endurance and more strength. They will pull away from the athletes who didn't have that muscular strength built up.
Yeah.
So simple things like pull-ups, they're going to be really helpful for open water.
Don't tell me that.
Anything that's pulling
like
related.
2 pull-ups, Jim.
Yeah, I know. They're hard to do.
2 pull-ups.
But pull-ups, the stretch cords, the Vasa trainer that Rob Slumaker has, his company Vasa, V-A-S-A. That's a wonderful machine to buy. Anything that's strength-related, upper body in particular, and core, because the core gives out in the dynamic environment. Now, it's helped a bit with a wetsuit, but there are non-wetsuit races, so what are you going to do in a non-wetsuit race if you're not prepared?
And that's the thing. You look at athletes who go from the wetsuit to non-wetsuit. I think one of the biggest things is just their lack of strength, their lack to grab the water and keep that purchase on the water yard after yard after yard as those yards add up. So what about swimming? We use any buoy. Do you think using that at this phase of training in the pool is beneficial?
I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot to mention it. Yes, it's one of the tools that we use. Now, we started engaging that buoy in the last several weeks of our prior phase as we got ready to redo the 100 time trial, right? Because that'll help build some muscular power. And that's another tool you can use. It's a buoy that's, I should have brought it as a prop.
Yeah, we showed it a couple episodes ago.
Right.
It's in the car right now.
You can unscrew the caps. There are 2 caps. You fill it with water, both chambers, and it's an added weight. And so you're forced to try to hold good body posture in the water, and then you have this added weight that you have to pull along your body. So it's also another form of strength training.
Yeah.
What you would see at elite facilities of NC2A swimmers are they train with what's called buckets, right? And it's a harness system, and it's a bucket filled with water, and they put a strap around their waist, and they swim, and as they go forward and with high power, it raises the bucket. It's the weight resistance, right? So this is just another form of it because 99% of folks are not going to have access to swim resistance training with these buckets. Parachutes, that's another one.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of tools that you could and should integrate into your training during this phase to help build specific muscular power and endurance. And specific means to the muscles, for the muscles that are used specifically for swimming. Shoulders, lats, pecs, triceps.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you want to keep that steady rhythm, that steady stroke, that steady purchase on the water. And if you're lacking in that muscular durability, if you're not strong as you could be, if you don't have that muscular endurance, there's no way you're going to keep that up. So take it serious.
Yeah, any type of turbulence, you just get slapped around and pushed around with if you don't have the power to cut through and stay with good posture, you just get pushed around a lot. So your Olympic distance swim of 1.5K or your half Ironman swim that's 2K, right? You end up swimming a lot further because you're getting pushed around by the dynamic nature of their environment. So you're swimming further, you're swimming at poorer quality, all these variables.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time to be had.
So besides working that muscular endurance, what are some other skills that we work into the workouts at this phase of training? I know we've done this in the podcast plenty of times in the past, but it's always a good refresher of what are the skills, and you briefly went over them, but maybe we could nail it down the bullet points. What are the skills that we work into the workouts here in the skill building phase?
So you back into the needs or the demands of open water, right? So the specificity, and we do it in a particular order. We start with deck ups, and deck ups have to do simply as you get done, Jim, as you know, at the conclusion of a swim. Example, one of the sets we did earlier this week was a 5-minute swim followed by 8 50s, and at the end of each 50, the moment you hit the wall, you climb up and you stand up on the pool deck straight, and you don't bend over. And you do your rest, your 20 seconds rest standing on the pool deck. Those deck ups alone are heart rate spikes. It's part of the adaptation that's getting you ready for your transition when you go from swimming horizontally to standing vertically to running. So those get introduced. That's the first thing we introduce. Then we introduce sighting, and that'll come next week when we start putting sighting into all of our main swim sets. Every single main set for this phase.
Yep.
which are 3 workouts a week, right?
Yeah.
2 A sessions and a B session. The recovery sessions, we don't put it in. And there'll be sighting within the main sets. And sighting could simply be, let's make up a main set, 8 times 200 with 40 seconds rest. Well, you're going to sight 2 times every 25. So that's 16 times in a 200.
Yeah.
16 times in a 200, and you're doing 8 of them, right? What is that, 128, 16 times 8?
That's a lot of sightings, yep.
That's a lot of sightings. But you just did 128 sightings in one workout, and you're going to do that multiple times before you go to a race, as opposed to showing up on race day and then doing your sightings for the first time.
Yeah.
You're going to be rusty. You're not going to be very good at them at all.
No.
And you're going to have pain in your neck and lower back.
Oh, the place you do not want pain in a race is that lower back. But yeah, I mean, sorry, that neck. You get the pain on the neck and the bike already.
Horrible.
You're probably going to have it already because of the TT position. You know, as those miles add up, you get that net pain in the back of your neck. If you're coming out of the water with that starting already, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. But the fluidity, you know, we're working the fluidity. You're not going to be sighting that much in open water unless you have a ton of chop, right? You're going to sight every 8 to 10 strokes. If you're sighting 2-3 times per 25, that is so many sightings. You get used to fluidly sighting that many times. When you go in the open water and you're scaling it back slightly, it's going to feel like nothing. It's so smooth.
And we'll go in another episode into how to sight fluidly, because I think it would be important to go into the mechanics of sighting. But deck ups, and then sighting, and then the demands of the main set changes. Example, because in open water, let's just take for easy explanation. You look at the Olympic Games, the triathlon, they dive off the pontoon. On the first 200 meters, the 300 meters is the most important part of the race.
Yep,
it's race takeout speed,
yeah.
right? So that has to be built into your training sessions so you can have good positions. You can make the right pack. Okay,
Yep.
if it's a mass start. If it's not a mass start, and today we have a lot of races that are starting 2 or 3 people abreast every 5 seconds, you still want to be able to start towards the front of your time range and then be able to get on the feet of some folks that are faster. So takeout speed is still necessary. So this gets built into the specificity of our training sets. And then, of course, then we add in running at the end of a deck up, where you then start running. So you deck up and then you run for 10 or 15 seconds. Some facilities don't allow running on their pool deck. Fortunately, ours do. We built it into our contracts with the facilities. But you can certainly stand up and run stationary.
Yeah,
right?
Run in place, do jumping jacks, do
Yep.
push-ups, do something to get that blood moving.
Yep, and then you just dive back in or jump back in. And then, of course, then there's drafting.
Yeah, drafting's a big one that people don't want to practice in the pool. But if you could, same thing as sighting. If you can get comfortable drafting in the pool, you get in the open water, it's gonna be, not even gonna think about it. You're just gonna do it.
And another thing that we, if you notice, you've probably seen this at workouts, and you've probably done this yourself, Jim. When we're swimming in open water, you always end up on the same side of somebody. Let's say you and I are going to go swim together, and you like being on. You like the other person being on your right, like where I'm sitting next to you. You will find yourself to my left. You'll find a way to get me to your right, because that's where we have an innate position that we like to be in.
Yeah.
Just like how you're a right-hand writer or a left-hand writer with your pen. You have an innate position that just feels more comfortable for you. But in races, sometimes you don't have that luxury. So we have to build in familiarity of being on the right side, being on the left side, being trapped in the middle, and how do you get out of it? Because that is not an ideal position to be in. So the familiarity of all these positions needs to be built in. And again, the key word is familiarity. It's not comfort, okay? And you know my thing. We work towards becoming familiar with discomfort. Familiar with discomfort. We don't get necessarily good at it. We're just familiar with it. We get acclimated to it, and we learn how to manage it.
Yeah, and the only way you do that is practicing it. That's why it's nice to have a group to swim with, a couple friends to swim with, because it keeps you accountable to doing these things. If you go to yourself and say, "Okay, I'm going to do 4 200s, 3 sightings per 25, deck up at the end of each," sure, you can go do that on your own. But if you have some friends or a group, or you're swimming with a team, and you can all do that together, one person alone, you might be a little self-conscious of running across the pool deck and diving back in. But if you have 2, 3, 4, 25 friends to do it with, it makes it that much more comfortable. And you get more out of the workout. If you can swim with 3 of your best friends, 3 abreast on a 25-yard sprint, changing positions each time, you're going to be more comfortable when you get into the open water, because that's the way races are. Races, you're surrounded by athletes all the time, left, right, center, back, front, and you have to prepare for that, and we can do that in the pool, but it has to be consciously built into each and every session. So check that out.
Totally agree.
If you guys want more, a little more detailed, Coach Gerry's words in the Triathlon Swimming, Master Open Water Swimming. You find this on Amazon, anywhere you find your books, by Coach Gerry. Chapter 8 is all about the open water skill building. They have all of these details of what the open water skill building phase entails, and then everything else that the Tower 26 philosophy is made up from. So when did we release this book, Gerry?
Well, we made that book. We were doing it during the pandemic, so 2020, 2021 was when it was being written, and it probably came out in 21, I would guess.
2020. Come on, get it straight. Get your dates
Pandemic
straight.
writing.
Triathlon Swimming, Master Open Water Swimming by Coach Gerry Rodriguez, with all the Tower 26 methodology in there. So that's a good one. Get that on Amazon or wherever you get your finer books. What else we got, Gerry?
I wanted to touch on again Kona.
Yes.
And as expected, I wrote down some of the words that I was called.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Because I think it's interesting. I'm sexist. I marginalize women. I patronize them, made them feel unequal. I'm arrogant. All these types of things because I took a position that you and I think you felt the same way.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be equal number of women and equal number of men at the Kona Ironman World Championship. So I think we beat that horse to death as to our views on it. And if I'm arrogant because of my position, fine. I look at myself as being confident rather than arrogant. But if you want to use those words to describe me, that's your choice. The thing that where equality needs to happen, that I want Ironman to get the message with. Now, let me back up. One of the facts I needed to mention, because I don't think I stated it correctly. Women self-select Ironman racing at a rate of 20%. Mm-hmm. So you go to any Ironman race, there are 54 Ironman races, I believe, around the world. 53 of them, only 20% of the field are female, okay? So they've self-selected, I don't want to do that distance, relative to men, okay? So 4 out of every 5 participants are male in Ironman races outside of Kona, the World Championship. 1 out of 5 are female. Now, if you go to 5K races, just running races, it's something like 65% are women. And as you go up in distance, 10K, half marathon, marathon, it's less and less women, more and more men. Mm-hmm. And these are all self-selections. This is not the race director saying, I'm going to allow more women and less men, or more men and less women. It's self-selection. So the self-selection for individual events in triathlon are about 60% male to female at the shortest events, because the sport is about self-selection. 60% men are enrolled in the sport, 40% women. That's the breakdown, right? Yep. And then as you go up in the distance of the race and you get to the Ironman level, it's 80-20. 80% men participate, 20% women. Self-select. But at the Kona, from 2019 backwards, it's 30% women, and it's not self-selected. Ironman actually allowed more women to participate. They gave more slots, because this is not like a running race that you can go to if you had unlimited space. And let's say you could take 1 million people in a race, and you don't have 1 million interested, right? It doesn't matter how many men or women. There's no limit to the quantity that can do the race. They just accept all.
Sure, come on in.
But Kona has a limit, and I believe it's 2,500 or 3,000, whatever the number is.
Let's say 3,000 would be, to make it even.
Easy math, 3,000.
Yeah.
And although 20% self-select, Ironman has decided in the last number of Kona races to move it up to 30%. They've allowed more women slots. So they've actually increased the self-selection by another 50%, from 20% to 30%, okay? Yeah. So that's still not good enough for some women or men that want it to be 50-50. So we agreed to disagree there, okay? I respect your view. I don't agree with it. You don't agree with mine. That's fine. Let's get on to what I think is the super important issue that will help the sport more than the 50-50. And that is, I think Ironman does not do a good job at their races, at Kona in particular, at providing equal coverage for women. I sat there year after year and I watched that race, and I have to go, is there a women's race going on here?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so little time spent reviewing the women's race that to me, at the professional level, right, that's just as important. It's no less important than at the men's level, but the coverage is abysmal for women. All it requires is another motor. Yes, they have to do planning, and there's broadcasting planning. There's a lot of planning, but it is another professional race that's taking place that should get, in my opinion, equal coverage.
Yeah.
How am I going to know how they're doing? I mean, we're all at the tracker tracking the pro women and pro men, but let's get coverage from cameras at the front, and not just the leader. So much time is spent on the leader. And what if the leader has broken away? Now we're just on one woman, or 90% of it on one man? No, let's get into the top 10 or 15 or 20, if you can, of both genders equally.
Yeah.
That's what Ironman, and equality, that's where it needs to start.
Yeah, and I think it should be 50-50 pro men and women. They should allow as many pro women in as they do pro men into that field.
Well, they do.
That's what I'm saying. I
equal.
agree with the equal 50-50, and you're right. I mean, if
talking about the coverage.
we're talking about exactly
The coverage.
if we're talking about promoting women in sport and getting more women into Ironman, that's where the masses are seeing it. They're seeing it on what's conveyed on outside online, or wherever it's the Facebook, or wherever it's the video, the live feed is right now. That's where these people are seeing it, saying, oh, look at all these women that are racing. I want to go do that. And it's that pro coverage that's making a difference in the women who are taking part in the race. Sure, the rest of the women's field is finishing and they're coming through whenever at the age group range, but at the professional, that's what you see. You don't see, the amateurs racing on there. You see the professionals, and it has to be that 50-50. Maybe it's a budget thing. Maybe they just don't have the resources to do it. But even if they don't have the resources, cut it 50-50 with the resources you have. Make that coverage equal, because a lot of times the women's race is a lot more entertaining than the men's race.
And whether it is or it isn't, provide the equal coverage there.
Yeah.
Get women who are trained just as hard as men do. And I guess this is where I'm being accused of patronizing. But forget gender here. Athletes train hard, especially if you're going to do an endurance event, okay? So you have your male and your female professional athletes, cover them equally. And of course, they do have like special interest stories that they do, and I think those are all terrific. But let's get at the professional level. If you're going to spend 80% of your budgeted time covering the pros, make it 40-40. Okay?
Totally agree. Yeah. And that's what influences other athletes to start taking part in this sport, is seeing those athletes on course and seeing that, hey, they're getting just as much as time. The men and the women are getting as much time. I can do this. This is right. Something I want to shoot for.
And you brought up an important point the last time that I want to highlight again. It is the roll down selection that needs to be tightened up, so the quality of the field. If Ironman wants to utilize the Kona World Championship as a true world championship, the North Star of performance racing at the Ironman level. If that's what they want to achieve, then that's what needs to happen. I'm not sure that's been achieved, because the roll down has been a problem. And then to your point, you talked about a 16:30 female or male. It has nothing to do with gender. A 16:30 person, and I'm giving an example, in the 35 to 39 age group should not be going to the World Championship.
Yeah.
Male or female. Because you have too many fast athletes that are in the 10-hour range in that age group, right?
And we have had athletes race or qualify from a roll down, and they get there, and some athletes might have thought that I was being rude, saying, oh, that person doesn't feel like they belong now because of what I said the last episode. And for all the athletes I've coached who've gotten a roll down, they're aware that they didn't finish in the top 2 or 3. They didn't earn that spot. They're aware that they got that roll down. And honestly, Jared, it makes those athletes work harder when they're going in the World Championships, because they know, hey, you know what? I didn't finish in the top 5. I got a roll down spot. I got to work harder to make sure I show that I belong there. And it's been a motivation point for these athletes who get that roll down spot.
But should they get a roll down spot, what if it rolls down to 15th
No,
place?
I agree. We take that spot and move over. I'm just saying in the past, for athletes who've got roll downs and maybe haven't been in the top 5, maybe they were farther down. Maybe this 17-hour woman, she went to Nice and had a great race because she said, you know what, I was 17 hours. I'm going to World Championship. I better up my game and work even harder to make it make me show everyone that I do belong there. So it's been a motivation point, as opposed to people saying, oh, you made people feel like they shouldn't, that they're not welcome at this World Championship because they didn't qualify in the top 5.
Jim, I don't buy how you or I make people feel, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that because I can't make somebody
I'm just saying,
feel.
I've seen a level of motivation from these athletes who've gotten roll down spots that I've never seen before from them because they got that roll down and they want to go there and feel like they belong. So
Sure. Let's fix the roll down problem then. So you have a certain qualitative standard. This is
Totally.
non-gender specific, male and female, that here's the level that's required for the World Championship. If Ironman really wants to have a true World Championship, in my opinion, they haven't. By dividing it up and going to 2 locations and allowing 2,500 people or whatever the number was at each location, that was a liquidation, basically,
totally.
of quality, okay?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
All right, so what are we on to? We have the workout of the episode. We have some videos. What do we have today?
Well, I wanted to ask you something.
Oh, geez.
Hockey.
Oh, hockey. There we go. Big World Championship last week.
Tell me about that. I mean,
Well, U.S. won their, was it since 1933? They won
Right.
their first World Championship in ice hockey. And, yeah, it's a big win for the United States. And I don't know. It just seems like every 10 to 15 years, the U.S. comes out and pulls one out of their back end and wins a World Championship. It'd be nice to see if there's some type of progression here. But I think
over time.
I would like to see some consistency in these World Championship victories because it's been a long time. This is the first one. They won 1-0 last week.
33. So what are we?
1933.
That's
I don't
93
know.
years,
Who knows?
92 years ago?
92, yeah, because we're next year, 100 years in 2033. Okay, that's almost 100 years. 90 years, 92 years, 93 years. 92 years.
Yeah.
So they're on to something, but I need to see some consistency, right? I don't know. Maybe it was a fluke, but.
Well, there's no flukes. I mean, you win, you win. It's
No, it's not a fluke, but they're raising at, whereas Canada, so this is the same thing in triathlon, right? So triathlon, when I started in the sport, everyone was an adult onset triathlete. Nobody really started saying, I want to be a triathlete in my career. I want to be a baseball player. I want to be a runner. I want to be an ice hockey player. And then when that kind of peters out, they say, okay, I'm going to go do triathlon. And then they become a triathlon, and the pro triathletes progress from there because they're a little better. Now athletes are being raised as triathletes, right? They started 6 years old, swimming, biking, running, and so we're seeing faster times. We're seeing the average Ironman time is what, in the 7:30s now, low 7:40s, half Ironman time, 3:30s, 3:40s.
the winning time, not the average time. The winning times
for the professionals.
Yeah.
These are some fast athletes because they started out. So what we're seeing in the United States, which Canada had for a long time, is these kids are they're training at a high level from a very young age. So the ones who make it through the whole system without burning out, without getting injured, without having something derail that progression are coming into the top end of the sport, and they're extremely talented players. Canada, that's been built into them from the start. This has been their national sport since
the same way we have,
1900.
we're my wife calls it stick and ball country. It's ice and pucks, right?
Exactly, yeah. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a better caliber of ice hockey player come out of the United States because they've been, let's get back to the theme of the episode, they've been paying attention to the details of the sport from a very, very young age.
25 saves, though. The U.S. goalie, 25 saves.
Especially at that level. These guys, they can shoot a puck in we call it, the upper corner, shooting a 5-hole with their eyes closed, right? And they shoot at 90+ miles an hour. To be able to shut it down like that, a 1-0 win in a championship game, I mean, that's a skilled goaltender.
Yeah, I mean.
And these guys, you think goalie, let's get the biggest guy, just cover the most in the net. The fittest guy on the ice is that goalie. The most flexible, fittest, strongest guy on the ice is that goaltender. Yeah, if you take those pads off, he is limber. He can move in every which way.
And I would presume a high amount of intelligence to read plays before they're going to be happening.
I'll tell you something. The goaltender is always a little bit of an outlier, this guy, because he's always kind of a weirdo. Because his mind works in a different way than everybody else, right? Because he can read the ice, he can anticipate everything. He's kind of like an engineer, right? He's kind of like, I'm not saying all engineers are weirdos. Most of them are weirdos, but he's kind of like engineer. The way his mind works, it's all mathematical, it's all angles, it's all, foreseeing what's going to happen before each play actually happens. So he's smart, he's physical, a little nerdy, but, I guess that's what it takes to do the job.
Well, I thought of you when I saw the result and was listening to the commentary and on how well he did. So I just wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah, it was big news in the hockey community. So, and it's fun to watch now too. Ice hockey has become faster than ever. I mean, when I played, these guys, I would be left like a fart in the wind if I were playing right now. These guys are so fast and on edge. But I'll tell you something. When I was playing, a pair of ice skates was at the most $100. I thought $100 for an ice skate, for my ice skates, was a lot of money. Now, Jer, they're over $1,000 for a pair of skates.
Jeez.
$1,000. You believe that? I would not. My kids are not playing ice hockey. I'll give them I'll give a pair of running shoes. That's it.
So should we do a couple little video reviews
Yeah, let's
quickly?
do a video. Can you bring up one?
I have some short ones to
do
show.
it. Or run a little. I can get over to Van Nuys, but let's do this video review here.
So I'm just going to do
So remember, go to Gerry at tower26.com. Send in your videos, and we will review them. Gerry has a couple here. We got them on the screen. We're showing them via YouTube Live right now. The recording will be up on YouTube after this is recorded, so you can watch it on there. But what are we watching here, Gerry?
So we're watching Dave. Dave is a pretty good college swimmer way back when, swims a 50 freestyle. But one of the things that Dave does really well, Jim, that I wanted to show is Dave is excellent at capturing, and I wasn't able to get this from a side view yet, so I'll promise to get us all a side view of this. But he's very good at capturing his breath really quickly, and it's hard to tell here, but you'll get a quick sense the breath is captured. The head is hardly turned. There's no impact on it, and there's no sort of lingering on the breath. And since it's done so quickly, there's no impact on his body. It doesn't make his hips go out of alignment or his legs go out of alignment. So I wanted to show that.
So that's what you see a lot of times is athletes turning that head way too much,
Yep.
and that's what causes the alignment. I see it every practice, and I'm just constantly saying, hey, little less of a head turn. Just keep that bottom goggle in the water. I heard a good one last week of an athlete I was telling. He's like, someone told me just look at the lane line and then turn your head back. Right, so a quick glance to the lane line, back to the middle.
So let's look at Dave here. We'll get a good little view as he takes a quick breath right there. Can barely see, its head's just out of the water. Now, the thing about one goggle out, one goggle in, that's beautiful in pool swimming. It's not going to work in open water because of the dynamic nature, right? But having this skill is helpful, and then we'll see it right here as he comes out. Look at it, quick little turn right there.
Yeah, that's a great breath.
Right?
Yep.
Little breath, mouth barely out of the water, and arms coming around, and his head's going to start going back in right away.
Yeah, that's
right?
a good, nice, quick breath.
And same again, quick breath, right? So it's really well done.
Yeah.
I'll get some side views for us the next time. This I wanted to show, this is one of our beginning athletes, started adult onset where you like to use, and Catherine started with us several months ago, last summer actually, and I pegged Catherine at about 215-ish, 220 per 100 yards, so beginner. She was around 155-ish if she went all out for 100, 150 to 155. And by the way, we just redid our 1K and 100, and Catherine went 131 in her 100.
That's great.
So here she is. Let's do her in real-time speed so you can just see. She's close to the camera here. Smooth, right?
Yeah, that's real smooth.
Good body position, nice hip roll, left to right, head static.
So she has her snorkel and buoy on right now. Yep.
Now, so there's a lot of good things here. And then I wanted to point out an error that many of us make. Take a look at the wrist, the right wrist. See it?
Breaking the wrist. Yeah, you can see underwater.
Yep.
She's had her wrist at almost 90 degrees from her forearm.
Right there, right?
Yep.
And the moment that wrist breaks, you're going to notice that the elbow is going to start, you always pick this out, the elbow is going to start collapsing into the body.
Like she's opening a door with her elbow.
Yep, it's a perfect, and then let's take a look again at the, there's the hand, right? Broken, right?
Still broken, yeah.
And then to your point, the elbow is going to start coming in towards the body here, right?
So when you drop your elbow the way Catherine's dropping her elbow, she's getting no lat engagement. She's getting no big muscle engagement. All she's doing is maybe using the muscles of the back of her shoulder to pull that water, and there's no real purchase on the water.
Yes. Now, she does have some propulsion right here at the latter part of the stroke, the back portion where her hand is parallel to the wall.
You see the hand come back in alignment with the forearm as she gets to about her hip. So would you say she's pretty much only getting propulsion from that right side, from her hip to mid-thigh where she exits the water?
Well, she's getting propulsion in the front, but it's not optimal, right? I mean, so it's still some, but this is where her biggest improvements will come. But this is still, this is soft, gentle, nice, beautiful swimming.
Oh, it's good. I like the
big,
timing of the arms. I like the alignment.
Yeah.
Everything looks good there.
Big improvements. So let's go to, should we go up to the episode, workout of the episode?
Yeah, let's go to the workout of the episode. Go to coaching.tower26.com. I like how fast you were on that. You're like a gunslinger with the iPad.
Well, I know you got to get rocking and rolling.
Yeah,
so
we got to get over to pool, coach the open water skill building phase.
This is a slightly long. If you look at the top of the thing here, you'll notice there's an arrow on the top left. and you go all the way across that blue line, and see it says 6 minutes and 44 seconds. That's the audio file that describes the workout. It's longer than normal, Jim, because I wanted to talk about the introduction to this phase and the things that we're doing in the phase. Normally, these audio files are 3 to 5 minutes. This one was slightly longer. And this is only our second workout in this first week of this new phase. So this is phase 4, our open water skill building phase, and this is week 1 of phase 4. Again, warm up. And this that you're looking at here is for our level 1 athletes. So this gets scaled for level 2, 3, and 4. And level 1 would be your more elite athletes. Level 4, let's use the word entry-level athletes, right? Probably
not so fast.
Not so fast.
Not so fast athletes.
Yeah. So 500 in this case, so that would get scaled all the way down to like a 300. And then here came along the deck ups. This is an approximate 10 to 12 minutes swimming, all easy. There's not a hard stroke in this. You swim a 100. The moment you hit the wall, you climb out, and you stand up, and then you turn around and jump or dive right back in. And you just rinse and repeat that for the entire time. We then did some pulling with an empty buoy, again, working on good mechanics, and this was specifically for Catherine, right, to work on good purchase. And then here was the main set. It's simple. It was a 5-minute swim. It's a 400 in this case. For some others, it was a 350 or 300 or 250, something that takes about 5 minutes. Effort level was low. They had the option of pulling if they wanted to. Effort level was 70, 75%. And we took the gear off, and then we went into anywhere from 5 to 850s. It was 850s for our elite athletes, 7, 6, 5 for our not so fast. And these were at a higher, consider these as sort of almost your upper aerobic capacity, 85% of maximum heart rate. So upper aerobic would be, your ceiling would be somewhere around 90 to 92% of maximum heart rate aerobically, right? So these are a little bit below. You jump in or you dive in, you swim your 50, you hit the wall, you stand up immediately, you rest 20 seconds, and then you go again. And you maintain that 85% effort. Now, this is week 1. So what do you think happened on this day? The moment folks jumped out and stood up on rep number 1. Yep, heart rates were spiked. And by rep number 4 and 5, they were starting to do something that we stop them from doing. Because heart rate's super high. Everybody wants to bend over, hinge at the hips, and then hands are on the knees, right?
Yep.
So you bend to try to get that heart rate down. Got to remain standing dead erect because you don't run to transition bent over.
Right.
So we did that, those 850s, did some recovery, and then went through that set 3 cycles through. We only did the deck ups in the first 2 rounds, though. We didn't do it in the 3rd round. And then we concluded the workout, Jim, with an easy pull.
Very, very
easy
high
pull
quality.
recovery.
And we always say how important the transitions are. And if we aren't practicing those deck ups, we aren't practicing the feel of getting out of the water and standing straight up, you're not going to be ready for it come race day. So pay attention to detail. Go to coaching.tower26.com. Have all that laid out there for you. You're assigned a coach. You leave comments for that coach. They give you the feedback. So everything is all encompassing. Go coaching.tower26.com. Gerry, we're going to talk about next episode.
Well, I want to go into detail, like you were bringing up, about how to sight fluidly. On what are the types of sightings that should be done? What is the proper mechanics, the structure of sighting? At a minimum, we'll go through that.
Okay. What about you do a good job of showing that firm wrist that you were talking about with Catherine. Really quick before we go, can you show them what that wrist should look like without the bend?
Holding
right
good
there.
good tension.
Right. One paddle from the elbow to the fingertips. It's a paddle.
Yep.
From there to there. There's no break.
There's no break at the wrist, so it's you hold on firm, forearm and palm. We push water straight back.
That's it. All right, Gerry, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for coming down. This is always a fun one.
Yeah.
And remember, go Gerry at tower26.com. Gerry, Gerry at tower26.com. Keep sending those videos in.
Yeah, send the video in.
Any questions? Anything else? What do you got?
No, that's it. Send the video in, and then we'll do a quick little 2-minute analysis.
There we go.
Give some scores.
All right. Until next time, for Gerry Rodriguez, Jim Minsky, this is the Tower 26 Be Racer podcast. Thanks, everybody.